Hello, my name is Brian Kukan. I'm here with the weSPARK Cancer Support Community, and I'm going to lead a little demonstration on a self-Reiki practice for anxiety and stress. And while I lead you through it, kind of explain a little bit what happens with the body when it goes into stress mode. And if you've heard of the fight, flight, or freeze response, that's what we're talking about. In the body, that's when it goes into the sympathetic nervous system, that's the fight, flight, or freeze, and we're going to work to move it towards the parasympathetic nervous system, the rest and digest mode. We thought these things were automatic reflexes of the body, which they are, but we're coming to understand that we can have an influence on them, so they're not as automatic as we think. We can actually influence them. So this practice I'll be talking through. You can take notes if you want. You can pay attention, you can follow the practice. I highly suggest that you do so. You can look back at this anytime that you feel you're getting a little stressed or you're feeling a little anxious. You can always just sit back and follow along with this. And so I hope you get some healing from this experience. So before we start, just want to get centered and grounded before we do any sort of Reiki. So since we'll be using our hands as our healing tools, just bring them together at your heart. And just take a moment to connect. Take a few easy breaths. And the first position we're going to place our hands, we'll take our palms and put them over our eyes and let the fingers just rest over the forehead there. This first position, I choose this one so that we can turn off our visual sense and start traveling and turning our attention inwards. And also, our hands being over our forehead, bringing energy to the prefrontal cortex, the front of the brain. Kind of makes us a little different than the other animals. Our prefrontal cortex is where we can reason and think more logically and more level-headed. It's the executive function of the brain. So this is where we would rather be, as opposed to our emotional core in the center of our brain, where it's mostly instinct, referred to as the reptilian brain. We want to get out towards the mammalian brain. So we bring some energy there to start. And then we'll move the hands to the side of the head. So on the side of the head above the ears, fingertips touching right above the crown, and just resting there. With our palms facing each other, we're sending the energy, again, into our brain, this time more to the center, where I was telling you in that reptilian brain, we're looking at the limbic system. The limbic system, one of the major glands inside of there, or the parts of the brain called the amygdala. That's the one that really ramps up our emotional responses to stimuli, whether they're externally outside of ourselves or just the anxious thoughts that we have. And if the amygdala gets that signal that we're in stress mode, well, it's going to run the show and really turn on that sympathetic nervous system. So with our hands here, we're just turning down the amygdala, just turning down that response. Also connecting to our hypothalamus and our pituitary gland in the center of our brain. Hypothalamus gets messages from our nervous system, sends those messages to our pituitary gland. Our pituitary gland sends the messages out to our endocrine glands through hormones, through our bloodstream. So we want to make sure that the messages that they're sending out are the good, positive, relaxing ones. And then taking one hand on your forehead, one hand on the back of your head, just sandwiching your entire brain. Again, giving the energy to the prefrontal cortex so we can think more logically, more rationally, as opposed to all the irrational fears that we can bring up in our minds and worry about. Also turning down the amygdala, that emotional response. and connecting with the hypothalamus and the pituitary gland so that the messages that are being sent out to the rest of the body are with the parasympathetic nervous system, the rest and digest mode. Now the hypothalamus and the pituitary gland are a part of the HPA axis, H for hypothalamus, P for pituitary, and then they send their message down first to the adrenal glands. So we want to get down and give some positive energy to the adrenal glands. So we're going to take our hands on our back. Now, the adrenals sit above the kidneys, so reach up about as far as you can towards the bottom of your rib cage there. That'll get to your adrenal glands. And the message when we're in stress mode that the adrenals get is, well, we're in stress mode. There's a lion chasing us. Ah, we need energy. So the adrenal glands start producing cortisol. So we want to turn that response down. Cortisol is known as the stress hormone, which has its benefits and is a natural hormone to go through the body, but in the stress response, we want to turn that down. So just giving some energy to the adrenal glands, letting them know it's okay. Take a nice deep breath, help yourself relax. Now when that cortisol is released into the bloodstream, first place it goes is over to the liver. So we're going to give some energy to the liver as well, because what's happening now as the liver receives the cortisol from the adrenal glands, liver thinks that we need energy. See, the stress response is an old system that kicks in when we're in danger. You know, when we used to be chased by lions and tigers and we needed to run fast and get out of there. However, nowadays, a lot of the stresses are coming from upstairs and internally. So when we are in that danger mode and we have to run to get away or use our body to move fast, the liver releases extra energy in the form of glucose. Glucose starts circulating through the body to give us that energy so that the muscles can move and not be worn out. But right now, I'm not moving. Any kind of worries are coming from upstairs, so I don't need that extra energy. Just let the liver calm down. Just placing our hands on it, giving that attention, helps it get the message, everything is okay. But see, when the liver does release all that glucose into the system, that spikes our blood sugar in our bloodstream, and that's not healthy because the blood needs to be at a normal pH. So when the blood sugar is elevated, the pancreas then kicks in and starts releasing insulin. So the pancreas is behind the stomach, so we can give some energy to the pancreas as it's working and overworking to produce that insulin to get the glucose out of the bloodstream. Now normally, if we were running from a bear or whatever animal's chasing us, we would need that energy and our muscles would accept that glucose. See, the insulin is just like a door-to-door salesman. It's trying to take the glucose and sell it to whatever cell or house that it can get to. But right now, if I'm not running and my muscles don't need the energy, all the doors to the muscle cells are closed. So the insulin's knocking on all the muscle cells, and it's not getting anywhere. But the door that's always open is to the fat cells. So the insulin just opens the door to the fat cell, puts the glucose in there, we store for extra energy, but that's also why we gain weight when we're stressed, because there's all this excess energy that has nowhere to go except to get stored for later. So I'm going to calm down the pancreas, let it know it's okay, let the insulin do its job, but we don't need any more excess in the system. Now, since we're also in this area, we can go over here to our spleen. Spleen connected to the lymphatic system, also the cardiovascular system. The spleen is like the largest lymph node of the body. Holds a lot of white blood cells in there. Also the red blood cells, so it takes care of any any old damaged red blood cells and replenishes it. But also in terms of the stress response, when it has all this excess white blood cells that are produced because we get stressed out, it keeps this feedback loop going to keep us in this stress mode. So we want to calm down the spleen, make sure it's just doing its job, releasing those white blood cells to help the body protect from any invaders, and just clean the blood and take care of any invaders that are coming into our system, helping with the immune system. Now, since we're talking about the blood, we can also move up to the heart. Because remember that HPA axis, the adrenals were releasing cortisol. They also release adrenaline, or epinephrine, more commonly known. And that epinephrine tells the heart to start speeding up. Well, we're not in danger, we're not running away for our lives, so we can calm the heart down. Doesn't need to work too much. Just placing our hands over it, just allowing it to be at ease. That epinephrine also constricts your arteries and veins and elevates your blood pressure. Now, elevated blood pressure, elevated heart rate, not beneficial for us unless we're actually exercising or doing something physical. So we just want to calm all of that down in our cardiovascular system. Taking a nice deep breath. Speaking of the breath, if the heart is beating very fast, well, that means a lot of blood's going through the lungs, taking a lot of the oxygen, releasing a lot of the carbon dioxide, which means that starts speeding up our breath. Our breathing rate is elevated, so we want to give some love to the lungs. Let them know it's okay, we're not running anywhere, we can calm down. And just relaxing, letting our breathing be at ease. Take a few nice deep breaths. Breathe all the way down into your belly. Releasing any tension in your abdominal muscles, just to let it be. And those are the parts of the body that are stimulated during the stress response, that sympathetic nervous system, that fight, flight, or freeze. So we wanted to turn all of those down. But now let's start turning up the parasympathetic nervous system, the rest and digest mode. So we're probably starting to relax a little bit more. But since we're up here, if we're talking rest and digest, our thyroid is in here in the center of our throats. So you can place your hands around your neck like this, or just around here. This is comfortable for me. Others might like it like this. The reason I'm coming up to the thyroid is because it regulates our metabolism. So we want to make sure that our digestive system starts working properly. See, when we're in fight or flight mode, body stops digesting. It doesn't work properly because it's focused on making sure the muscles are working and we can run away from the danger. But here we want to get into rest and digest mode. So we want the digestive system to start working. So we're addressing the thyroid right here, regulating our metabolism. Then, where does digestion start? In the mouth. So we have all these salivary glands around the jaw. So we want to give some love to them, make them activated. So if you want an easy way to know when you're turning on the parasympathetic nervous system or the rest and digest mode, notice your mouth. Are you starting to salivate? It's a good sign to let you know that you're in the rest mode. Because if you ever get stressed, your mouth usually goes dry. You ever stand up and talk to a crowd? You'll know your mouth getting really dry at that point. So here, just giving some love to the salivary glands. Notice Spit starting to form in your mouth. It's a good sign that you're starting to rest. Your body is ready to digest. And then from the mouth, we travel down the esophagus, down into the stomach. So we'll come back down here. Stomach just a little to the left of center. I want to make sure that the stomach has all the correct digestive enzymes in there so that it can do its job and break down all the food into its component nutrients so that it's ready to travel off and get absorbed into the body. So in the mouth and in the stomach, their job is the digestion. So we're breaking down the foods. Then it leaves there and goes down to the small intestine. So down into the small intestines, and there's a lot of them, so I'll just put both hands on the belly there and get it all. Its job is to absorb all the nutrients. So if the stomach does its job and breaks everything down into really small pieces, and it travels through the small intestine where it absorbs all the nutrients, sends it through our body to give us the proper energy and nutrients that it needs. There's a lot of nerve endings through our entire digestive system. So we often hold a lot of our anxiety down here. So whenever I'm working with someone, giving them a Reiki treatment, and they suffer from anxiety or they're in a stress mode, my hands are always called to work on their belly. There's so much going on down here that stores the stress, holds on to it, and there's 100 million neurons down here. It's not quite as much as the brain, but it's the second largest nervous system in our body. So we want to make sure that they're nice and calm. They get the message, everything's okay. Sometimes when you're giving Reiki into the stomach, you might hear some gurgles and some noises down here. It's music to my ears because it lets me know everything's working. I'm just getting everything to calm down. So once we absorb all the nutrients, then any of the waste, the stuff that we're not using, any more solid pieces, it's coming up through our large intestine. So we'll start for the first part on your right side. So this is the ascending colon. So I'm going to put both hands over here. Just as we start transitioning from the small intestine into the large intestine, dealing with our ascending colon, just giving some love there. Continue taking nice long breaths. Really accentuate the exhale. Extend the exhale. It helps tell your body everything's all right. The inhale happens naturally. Your body wants to breathe, so it's going to inhale. Focus on the exhale. If you ever need to slow down your breathing, just exhale like you're blowing through a straw. That'll slow it down. From the ascending colon, then we'll get to the transverse colon, kind of going across the belly here, from the ascending, transverse, crossing over. So get both hands. Of course, in this position, we're also addressing the liver, the stomach, the pancreas behind it, even the spleen. We're getting it all right here. Even the diaphragm back there to help with our breathing. transverse colon, then over to the descending colon, over here, towards the end of our digestive tract. So the large intestine, the colon here, it's in charge of the elimination. So stomach and the mouth in terms of digestion, breaking it down, small intestine absorbing the nutrients, and then anything we don't need gets eliminated, but we got to make sure that our large intestine is working properly. So we want to make sure that it is taken care of. We're giving extra energy to it. Then it curves down as it's getting ready to go to the end, and so we can give it the sigmoid colon down here and the bladder, both for our elimination of wastes. So we can give it down to our lower abdomen, allowing our belly to extend on the inhale again, and making our exhales nice and smooth. And that's it. Bring your hands back together. I always like to have a beginning, a middle, and an end. So at the end, just be grateful for taking this time for yourself, learning a little something about how your body works, and sending some extra energy to it. Reiki is that universal energy, that spiritual life force that helps us support life. And the simplicity of it is all we have to do is put our hands on it and it starts working. I don't need to force it in there. I don't need to push it in there. You put your hands there, the Reiki starts flowing. So anywhere you put your hands, I was able to talk through the whole session, but I know I was still getting Reiki in all those areas that I was placing my hands. So it's really simple to do. I encourage you to do this. I also did a different video where you could go through the whole body, make sure all of your energy centers are taken care of. This one focused mostly on the stress and anxiety and learning how your body deals with it. And remember, watch out for those stresses that are coming from up here and not out here. They cause all those actions in the body. You want to make sure you learn how your body works, and then with your mind and intention, make it change. Do what is beneficial for you. You can check me out on my website. It's kukanreiki.com. That's KUKANREIKI.com. And sign up for a session here at weSPARK whenever you get a chance. Hope to see you soon. Namaste.